How's it going? Welcome to another episode of Lostlikemike. I'm your host, Mike Gonzalez, and I think this is episode 12. I'm not sure, but we keep going. We're doing it every week. I first want to apologize. This probably doesn't get posted by tonight because I've been doing pretty good about getting them out by every Saturday. But this has been a week, and it's been quite a week for me. But before we get into all that, I first wanted to thank everybody for listening. Please like and subscribe on YouTube, and please rate and comment on the different platforms. If you're listening on Spotify or on Apple Podcasts or any of the other platforms, do what you do to make it spread organically, and share it with anybody that you feel would enjoy this podcast. And it's a growing experience for me. It's fun. It's learning. I have recognized that this sort of focus on myself. How do you phrase this? Well, I think it's equally opened my eyes to a lot of different things going on inside, in a positive way, making me sort of self-aware and sort of getting to focus on the issues that are going on inside. But at the same time, I think because of that focus, or because of this weekly sort of visit to deal with these things, when you spend most of the week distracting yourself from it, or trying to, I feel like it's made me think about it quite a bit more than I had in the past. And I think if positive things aren't happening within that time frame, I feel like I get it just forces me to internalize it, and I think that's a negative thing. So but it's bringing attention to it within myself. So inevitably, it's what I do with it. It's not the podcast's fault that happens. It's just the reality of my current circumstance. So I have discovered, I feel like I do not socialize enough. I do not have that outlet. I've obviously, I talk to people in a professional capacity in my day job, but really, there's such a division between myself and everybody that I talk to at work, in terms of like, you're sort of assisting with the customer or the client, and their needs are practical, and they don't often, hardly ever, get personal or have any sort of personal connection. It's always sort of just a task-oriented conversation. And then the same goes for colleagues and coworkers. It's there's small talk, if that, rarely. occasional banter. Um, and, and then there's such a small window when I get home to see my wife or my daughter, or speak to family or what have you. So, and like last week and this week so far, if you're following the show, or if you have listened in the recent past, you know that I've been doing a family breakfast brunch kind of thing, and missed it last week, and due to my mom not feeling up to it. She was feeling under the weather. Same thing this week. And I had mentioned previously that it was a big deal to me, really a game changer, in fact. Something I was looking forward to, something I can hang my hat on. And so that's a bit of a bummer. But I think part of fixing a problem is just recognizing it. So it's a bit of an update, I suppose, we're working on currently. Inadvertently talking to you about it right now. I think it's important. I think connections are what it's all about. And sometimes the anxiety, or sometimes the depression, or sometimes the things that are going on internally wouldn't fester as much, or wouldn't have the credence that they have if they were just exposed for what they are, and baseless, or exposed for what they are in terms of making mountains out of molehills, or presenting the absurdity of worrying or feeling any certain way about things that you have no control over. And sometimes that's exemplified, or shined a light on by conversation with friends, that let you know, hey, you're okay, I'm okay. So, a lot of that is what I hang on this show. It seems like I'm just talking to myself, but really, if I could just feel like everything's okay, then somebody listening to this would also say, well, maybe everything's going to be all right. And if it's not, we have no control over it, so it's no sense in being down about it. It's funny, my friend sent me a link to this meditation, and I started listening to it, got a good way in, but it's the danger of not having the time to listen to a lesson all the way through, because at the beginning of the meditation, it's a meditation focused on centering yourself into the present. The past is only remembered or can only be experienced in the present moment. The future will never come to pass. It's always the present. It's always the now. So, but that's, I didn't get too far into the rest of it. So I've kind of been in this weird sort of focus on trying to get to the present, and, not trip on the future, not trip on uncertainty, just focusing on the now, and not dwelling on the past, or even, letting that impact my present state of thinking. So have you ever listened to a lesson, try to hear it all the way through so that you can apply the principles and the lessons in their entirety instead of the first part and then wonder what to do next, because that's frustrating. And I mean, if you ever watch a show or do a run of a TV show that you may have watched in the past and then rewatch it. I was just watching an episode of a show that I used to watch all the time, and I got to thinking about what my mentality must have been like when I was watching it then, because I'm so I guess, for lack of better, I'm so anxious these days. It's almost like a part of my every minute being, that I wonder how it must have been like watching the same program, because it felt like when I would get distracted from watching the program, I would divert right back to being like, uneasy, or I feel like I'm on the verge of a panic attack. And it's like, I haven't always been this way. And I wonder what it must, like, how I functioned in the past, being able to do that. I don't know. I'm just putting that out there to see if anybody has similar experience in terms of revisiting an experience that you did before and finding that you are the difference in the equation, and how are you different now, Anyway, so I guess we could get started. I was thinking about the reason why I'm a little late this week. This week we have, performance-wise, we were asked if we would play 5 nights in a row. Usually we play on the weekend every Saturday and Sunday, and then every Wednesday, right in the middle of the week. And we're, we were planning on switching to Thursdays, right? The reason why I mentioned that is because they said on the crossover to October, we were going to start. So if we could play Wednesday, Thursday, and because there was the additional 5th Friday in September, it's just details. But can we play Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday? No big deal, right? So Wednesday and Thursday would be from 9 until 1 in the morning. Get home like at 2. And then I have to up and out to work to get there by 8, right? So not a lot of sleep happening there. And but that was the challenge. It was going to be Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So it was maybe Tuesday where I woke up and with a bit of a closeness to my throat, with some I felt like I couldn't really talk, and it was progressing through the day. It just was getting worse and worse. I started panicking because we needed the shows to go off obviously, and the prospect of it I thought, even with concentrating on singing correctly and all this kind of stuff, that the shows were going to be a taxing on it was going to be taxing on my throat. all my vocal cords, and it was going to be a bit of a push. Anyway, but here I am, not even starting day one, and I'm starting to lose my voice. We have this weird thing. My cousin and I have this thing where if I'm sick, I have this weird voice thing. So sometimes I can, all the way up to the moment of the show, be worried about my voice, and I'll, and having allergies or a cold or whatever it is, and then start singing, and it has no bearing on my singing. So we said we'll play it by ear. We'll see what it's like on Wednesday night. Man. Okay, so I apologize for drinking, but as you can tell, I'm not out of the woods with my throat situation. Anyway, so song 1 on Wednesday night, and nothing's coming out. It was so bad. To his credit, my cousin, he sang a lot of the night. He always sort of does harmonies and backs up a little bit here and there in terms of like the lead, the lead. I mean, he'll sing with me at times, but he was having to pull a lot more than his share of the weight, singing wise. We changed all the songs to, didn't do a lot of anything heavy hitting. We just kind of coasted. And I felt bad every time somebody tipped or put money in a jar. Because I didn't feel like I deserved it. Here's the thing. My father used to tell me this when I was growing up, that you're only as good as your last show. And I can tell you, if he ever had a bad show, like if the sound sucked or there was nobody in the audience, or for whatever reason, if in his mind he had a bad show, then he just wasn't right until he had his next one. And sometimes that could be weeks, where he would something was off. And when I was growing up, I didn't understand it. But as I would perform myself, I started to get it. I tell you, because you could perform and be on point and have your, whatever your respective talent be. Like I have some nights where I'll sing and with a lot of confidence and it'll come out great, or I'll check all the boxes of what I would constitute a good show. The audience is down, whatever it is. And I can ride that wave for a long time, man. I mean, the coin on the opposite side, yeah, you have a night like Wednesday, and just sound like the struggle the whole night, and be haunted by it. Or I've even had some nights where I'll sing by all accounts well, and for whatever reason, it's just not what the crowd's feeling, and they'd rather, we play this one night and a week, and after we finish, they do a karaoke night. And I swear, I never go to karaoke, all right? but I've played a bajillion karaoke nights where you play a club and then there's just people waiting around for their karaoke, their turn. There's some of the crappiest audience members. No offense. But really, it's obnoxious. Like, well, it's annoying to the extent that people feel that they have to, I don't know, for whatever reason, not give it to the singer who's performing, you know, in any other respect than the karaoke. Like, the egos on these people, it feels like. Because we typically have to wait to get paid, so I'm hanging out. I'll listen to these singers on these karaoke nights. You know, they're having fun. Some of them are really, it's tough singing karaoke. You know, I have a lot of respect for karaoke singers. Because a lot of times the audio is very, on the microphone, there's not a lot of effects. It's just a little bit of reverb and it's dry, whatever, and they're still having to sing. I'm just talking in terms of, like, if you've ever had a band play before the karaoke starts, it just always seems like they have the least amount of reception for that band. It's just been my experience. The looks, the refusing to clap or to participate. It's not only been for me, it's been for, other artists throughout my years of experience. So yeah, I just anyway, my point was, you play on a night like that and you may sing well, but for whatever reason, the show doesn't go your way. I'm used to it to an extent. It's funny, I listen to these comedians and they would talk about bombing. And one comedian asked another comedian, how would you describe the feeling of bombing, or what a crowd looks like? And I was thinking, like, because their point was that civilians non-comedians or entertainers don't really know what it's like to put yourself out there in front of an audience, to put yourself out to be judged, and for it not to go well. Like, to not only it not go well, but for a crowd to turn on you, or just not give it to you, as if you don't exist, like you're just not even there. I've had that. But it's funny because the comedian was telling the other comedian, this is what it's like. And he was explaining how material that should go well is met with indifference and ignored, and no reaction, and blank stares, and people having conversations they could care less about what's going on stage. They're just having their own night. And I was thinking, jeez, I bomb all the time. I mean, no, the trick is that I perform at restaurants, my steady gig is in that context. So the expectation is always there for the night to go like that. It's not a concert by any stretch of the imagination. So I'm not saying that. But some nights it's just that way. I play in a tourist town. You're playing whatever music people want to hear, and it's just the way it goes. But equally to that extent, you can have a bad show, and you can give 100% of who you are, express yourself entirely, and be ignored or not appreciated, whatever. And yet another dimension to this conversation is knowing full well that there's nothing true or real about the validation of that audience. There's nothing that should be real. Because we've talked about this. If somebody says you suck, do you take it to heart, or do you see this guy doesn't know what he's talking about? He doesn't know talent, or he doesn't know me, or whatever. So if you got to be like that, if you have to be that dismissive of criticism, then, especially if it's not constructive, then you should equally be the same way if somebody says, man, you're amazing. You're just a talent. Your voice is fantastic. Because if you give that guy power, then you should give the other one power as well, right? I mean, logically speaking. So I wish I could say I was stronger about it and that I didn't let it affect me, but sometimes it really does. It's a part of having a good show. It's not everything. Sometimes it's the singing is enough. If I'll be driving home thinking, man, I just did a good job. It was so good. That was fun. I guess that's in all things in life, but it's just got me thinking about it this time. So Wednesday night was a bust. 4 hours of just pure torture. Honey, just down in honey and whiskey and just doing everything that I could to even have any notes come out. But I'll tell you one thing that happened. It was in between the sets. A guy had come in with his party, came in, and I wanted to sit down. I was at a table. Guy comes over, says, "Hey, can I sit down with you?" And I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, I really just wanted the 15 minutes to just, but all right, it's cool. And he proceeded to tell me about how, he said, I just came in right now at the tail end of what you were doing, and y'all are really good. I guess we were playing guitar solos and banging out the end of a set, and I guess he didn't hear me sing or whatever. I don't know. We'll pretend like that's what it is. And but he said, anyway, you're really good. And then I'm gonna flash forward through all of the small talk questions about how long you've been doing this and whatever, all that kind of stuff. But he was saying how he works on construction, handyman stuff, building houses. He used to do it with his dad. All right, so that's the long and the short of it. And he doesn't have a musical talent in him. Okay, all he's ever known is appreciating. He's like, I can get my group going. If I'm at a party, I can get everybody hyped and get into the music, and we can have a good time, but can't play nothing to save my life. But then he went on to tell me how incredibly important music is to him, especially live music, and how what I was doing was important, and that just know that he was going to be out in the audience because he needed that live music. He needed it the way that people need a good time, or they need a release. He doesn't have his own. And it really sort of, I don't know, put perspective on my situation. It's not like he was saying one way or the other. It was just that he was trying to express how important the music is to him. Of course, I had to give him, the little bit of a caveat and say, listen, man, you got to come back on another night because this ain't how I sound. But I said, I'll do my best. And I did. I went back up and, I played my butt off, tried my best to give him a good show. And, but anyway, the important thing was that I felt like I received a message. Sometimes you give a lot of weight to a message, like saying that the universe was telling me. Sometimes I feel like that. Like the way you see a rainbow when you're having a really difficult moment. It feels like the universe is telling you something. Or if you like, there was a part of this song, this TV show, where the song comes out, and it's random, and it was Bob Marley's Everything's Gonna Be All Right, right? Was it Three Birds? Anyway, comment if you know the name of the song. But every little thing's gonna be all right. And for some reason, it resonated in a deeper sense with me in that moment, and I needed to hear it. And I said, well, then that's the universe talking to me, telling me, just chill out. Everything's gonna be all right. This moment's gonna be all right. Wow. If I was on a river, the tangents on this mother. I'm all over the place. All right. So driving home Wednesday night, my consensus was that was bad. And it's only going to get worse because this is day 1 of a 5-day stint. So I gargled salt relentlessly, like that night, the next morning, very little rest. I'm at work. I'm dreading the Thursday night show. Get home from work. I gargle salt, and then I go to bed. Take a nap. And I head out to the show. And we were already set up from the previous night, and the manager comes out and says, y'all, I'm sorry, but you're double booked. And don't worry, you'll get paid. Everything's gonna be fine. Is that cool? And I just about hugged the guy because I was like, jeez. I mean, don't have to tell me twice. Talk about the universe, right? Talk about God, higher power, spirituality, whatever you hang your hat on, friend. I mean, God was looking out for me that night. Said, hey, go home, gargle some salt, and rest. And that's what I did. And today, so Friday, went to work, right to the show, and there's an earlier show, and I kept telling every song to my cousin. I kept saying, it's another miracle. I don't know how I'm doing it, but I was a lot better. Definitely not easy, but I made it about 3 hours doing, I would say, the moderate stuff, like not crazy good stuff. Not the showstoppers, but we, threw a couple of decent songs that challenged a little bit. I just wasn't out of the woods, but I made it through. The crowd was okay, but it was better. It was hella better than Wednesday. Jeez. When I was trying to talk at work on even Thursday morning, they were like, somebody said that I sounded like Howlin' Jack or whatever, some just really raspy and really just trashy, almost like I sound right now. But anyway, but I made about 3 hours of it, 3.5, and we coasted that last hour out. And then of course, but I got home, and my intention was to record the podcast as I normally do on Friday nights and get it loaded and all that. Usually it finishes by Saturday. But I was beat up, tired. And so I said to myself, I want to find out how I do for as many of the shows as I can, so I can kind of report on it and talk about it. So I said, all right, I'm gonna not record tonight, and I'll go through the show tomorrow, and then when I get home, we'll do it to it. So yeah, today a guy was like, hey, can you play It's a Wonderful World? And Louis Armstrong, and he's like, yeah. And then he's like, and he was like, I think you sound like him. Shut up. He was being serious. He was like, it's a compliment. Like, I love that guy. And I was like, yeah, he's great, but you're saying that I sound like, I say great, geez. How bad do I sound, y'all? You know what I mean? That this guy is like thinking that's what I sound like. Anyway, and so this one we threw some showstoppers in there, testing the waters, and I did okay. I started introducing some limes to the mix, and did whatever I could. And I got one more show tomorrow, and I'm done. So I'm gonna gargle some salt tomorrow morning, get some rest, and apparently it's daylight savings, so that means I'm gonna get a little extra sleep. Because rest is so important. Hopefully I won't stay up. It's so sad. The first thing in the morning and the last thing at night are so hard to get past the intrusive thoughts and all that stuff. It's really no joke, man. I look around at people all the time, like when it happens. I'm like, how do people not have this stuff? And if they do have it, how is it they're not talking about it? How come it just seems I'm so obsessed with it? Like, it's this thing that I have to, like, I just would love to hear somebody say that they deal with this all the time, the way that I do. Whether they have those intrusive thoughts and I'm gonna have a. It's funny because the only thing I know I don't have is COVID, and I never would have thought there was a time when you'd just be happy for it not to be COVID. I mean, I don't think it's the flu or something, but it's still like there's this respiratory thing going around. It's rough, man. I mean, okay, I'll give you an example. So I was playing guitar on today's show, and I got a cut right underneath my nail. But and it's such a crucial part to playing that it's a real bummer, man, when something happens to your fingers, right? But singers have it, I think, the worst, because all of who I am is the instrument. I remember listening to this one singer talk about that phenomenon. It's like you have to be, when you're singing Broadway or when you're doing like a residency at some place playing shows every night, if your instrument goes out, if you get a sickness or, I mean, dunzo, that's it. Cancellation, people lose money, people out of work. I mean, I was a bass player, I was a guitar player. You can stand there and play. You sit on a chair if your stomach's upset. You could do what you got to do, but as long as there's nothing wrong with your hands, you're on it. You could have the flu. Many will do it. We used to call it like Rod Stewart night, or nothing against Rod Stewart's voice. I think it's fantastic. It's very signature. It's very his own. But I'd be singing the same songs, but when I'm sick, we couldn't afford to cancel. So it would be like I'd sing the same songs, but as a Rod Stewart impersonator, or George Thorogood, or somebody with a lot of rasp and crunch to their voice, But yeah, I never had the opportunity to cancel. But I can only imagine if I was putting out original music, I wouldn't want to present myself that way. So I can see how, I remember John Mayer canceling an entire leg of his tour because of throat issues, and people giving him a hard time because they considered it very diva-esque to can't, and it's like, it's so true. Like, you can't, it's his instrument, it's my instrument. And nothing was nothing was crappier than waking up on Tuesday going, oh man, I was already worried about 5 shows in a row, and here I am, barely hanging on, to but I've never been the type to call into work or to call into shows. If I can avoid it by any means, I'll do it. I don't know if that's, for good or for bad, because ultimately I suffer for it. That reason, make matters worse at times, get yourself far more sick than if you just would have stayed home and dealt with it. So tonight, yeah, I was planning on talking about more things other than these 5 shows, but I felt like this was what I wanted to talk about. So, my dad loved playing shows. He loved being, he hated not being on that stage. All the time he was always talking about finding a way to booking, shows somewhere, somehow. I remember one time we were still playing a 2-man acoustic thing, and they said, hey, it's a special night. This was many years ago. And they said, we'll throw you like all this extra money, but we need you to bring a drummer. And I was a family of drummers. My cousins, my brothers, my dad. And we went down the list, and obviously, because we play all classic rock, but my dad was a musician that played the music from the 1950s and some of the 60s, maybe the most, I guess, modern styles would be like some James Brown, or he would play a little bit of, country western, or like bluesy kind of shuffle beats, that kind of stuff, But as far as knowing 4 hours worth of material that we had been doing, he was not the first person on the list because of that reason. But I told my cousin, yo, like, what about using my dad, right? And so we decided, I asked my dad, hey, would you mind coming out and playing with us? It's a last minute show. And always the consummate professional came out ready to go. I mean, you're talking about, he's in the Texas Tejano Hall of Fame. I mean, like, but we were transitioning songs. Like, we were a 2-man acoustic show, changing our music into being like live band stuff at the same time as, him hearing these songs for the first time. I mean, like one-hit wonder 90s stuff, if you can imagine. And I remember we were doing, I don't know, one of these one-hit wonders that was just like and my dad interpreted the song like this weird, like kind of jazzy, sort of salsa kind of. He just, when he heard the chords kick in, and us singing, and he did the count, it just interpretation. It was such a blast, man. And you'll never hear those songs played that way. I wish that somebody would record it that night. But, during the breaks, he was such a pro and so into it and having a good time. At the end of the night, he refused taking any money because he was like, that it was the fun of doing it. It was hanging out with me, and it was the only time I ever performed. No, I mean, I'm sure we jammed with his group at times or two, but it was the only time that I sang the night with my dad on drums. And people loved it. They got a kick out of the fact I would mention every now and then that my dad came out to play on drums. But one of the things that bummed me out, I recorded a solo record back in the early 2000s, and I asked every drummer that I knew to come play with me, and my dad couldn't make it. Only my brother Chuck did. And what was curious about that was that he came out of drum retirement to play that show, to record that record with me. And I was a young musician and didn't know how to do a lot of things in terms of studio etiquette and getting what I wanted out of the recording. So, but I'll still listen to that record just for that reason. To hear his drums, it's the best thing on the record. As far as what, I hold it to a high regard. In all fairness, I didn't really go out and ask every drummer that I knew. I just put it out there that I needed drummers. I didn't really push it. I don't want to alienate anybody or make anybody feel like they didn't help in that time. Anyway, I'd love some topics to talk about during the show. I would love some ideas for stories or subject matters that people want to hear about. Friends make suggestions and stuff, but I really email me at lostlikemike@gmail.com. Leave something in the comments. I appreciate it. You're listening, and like and comment and subscribe, and we'll see you next time, okay? We'll see you around.